I'd like to call the October 16th meeting of the Sacramento Environmental Commission to order. Jill, can we have a roll call, please?
Robert Bailey, Mark Berry, Dr. Anthony DeRigi, here. Richard Hunn,
here.
Diane Kinderman,
here.
George Buzzlink,
here.
Margie Namba, Eric Rivero Montes,
Here.
Mark White.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thanks, Jill. I'd like to have a short introduction of the commissioners, kind of explaining who you're representing here for our audience tonight. Starting with you, Diane.
I'm Diane Kinderman with the law firm of Abbott and Kinderman. I'm an environmental land use and real estate attorney here in Sacramento and in St. Helena.
I'm Buzz Link. I'm a registered civil engineer. I'm a Sacramento County appointee. My area of interest is water.
Eric Rivera Montes. I'm a representative for the city of Elk Grove. I'm a background is in chemical engineering, and I'm an environmental specialist at the Sacramento Municipal Utility District, working primarily with greenhouse gas and climate change issues.
I'm Richard Hunn, representing Sacramento County. I'm a consulting and environmental planner.
Tony DeRigi. I'm a retired pediatrician from Kaiser Permanente and represent the city of Sacramento.
Mark White, representing the county. We have a small firm that consults with garbage companies in cities and counties on recycling and garbage issues.
Okay, thanks, guys. I'd like to take this moment now for any public comment, if there's anybody in the audience who would like to speak to the commission. Seeing none, we'll move on to our next item, which is our annual health county update. And tonight we have Kate McCauley, who's with the Health and Human Services Department, Senior Health Program Coordinator. Kate?
Hi, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here to give you this report on behalf of Dr. Olivia Cassirier, who is not able to attend tonight. I'm going to be talking about two notable situations in our county. One of them, a botulism outbreak that occurred this spring, and also the hepatitis A health emergency that Governor Brown declared on Friday. So Sacramento County Public Health collaborated with California Department of Public Health on an investigation along with county health departments in neighboring counties on some botulism cases, 10 cases that occurred in our Sacramento County and neighboring counties. There were 10 patients who became ill between April 20th and May 14th, and 80% of them confirmed that they had consumed nacho cheese sauce within a week of the onset of their illness, and that was at Valley Oak Food and Fuel, which is the only gas station in Walnut Grove. So what is botulism? It is a rare disease. In 2015, there were 199 cases, and it just comes up sporadically. It's caused by a bacterium, botulism, Clostridium botulinum, found in soil. In the soil, it forms spores, and in anaerobic, oxygen-free environments, it does germinate and produce a neurotoxin which can be lethal. It has a short incubation period, as little as 1 to 3 days, and can come about within 6 hours, and it can be as long as 10 days. The risks for botulism occur in canned foods. You know, when we were growing up, we heard a lot about issues with canned foods, home canned foods. You had to make sure there was a good seal on the can. And these days, that doesn't occur as often. It is also associated with IV drug use when there's a wound that forms and has a condition of anaerobic within the wound, and botulism can occur there. And also, botulism sometimes occurs with infants when they're given honey before the age of 1 year old. So in order to diagnose the disease, a physician who sees the patient and suspects that there may be botulism will inform the public health officer. It's required by law that that notification occurs. And lab testing is performed at the state microbiology lab. And when they're doing the testing for botulism for foodborne outbreak or foodborne case, they will collect both blood and stool specimen for testing. And sometimes the bacteria itself can be found in the stool and the toxin as well. So once a doctor has informed public health that they are suspecting such case, we do contact the state botulism expert, and they go through a questionnaire with the attending doctor and assess the situation, and if they agree that it is a suspect botulism case, then antitoxin is dispatched right away to the hospital. The symptoms of botulism are start out kind of slow with maybe blurred vision, drooping eyelids, slurred speech, difficulty swallowing, maybe experiencing a thick tongue, dry mouth, and then also eventually and sometimes rapidly proceeds to muscle weakness and paralysis, which causes difficulty with respirations. Some people have nausea, vomiting, and abdominal pain as well. And there are classic signs of botulism, which is that it's a descending paralysis going from head to foot, and it occurs on both sides of the body as opposed to perhaps a stroke, which might occur on one side of the body. So in our outbreak in Sacramento County, we defined a confirmed case as has a laboratory confirmed Clostridium botulinum toxin type A present with exposure at Valley Food and Fuel in Walnut Grove between April the 1st, 2017 and May the 5th, 2017. A probable case is one where the bacteria toxin is identified, and however, there's an unknown exposure to the Valley Oak Food and Fuel, but there's no other likely source to be an exposure. The signs and symptoms of the 10 cases are listed on this slide, and they range from not a single patient had every symptom. The most common were slurred speech and weakness in the beginning. And then the least frequent were thick tongue and diarrhea and so forth. So this slide is showing the epicurve of the botulism cases with the onset of symptoms date. The onset of symptoms for the first case was April the 20th. And each of the short bars represents one person, and the taller blue bar is 2 cases, 2 people, and then the pink bar, it represents a probable case. And you can see the last case onset of symptoms was 5/14. Public health measures that were taken were, in addition to what I went over previously, is that the county right away starts to interview the patient if possible. Sometimes they're not able to speak. And family members, and try to get a food history on what they ate and where they ate and those kinds of details. They also can look in the house into the refrigerator to see what foods might be in there. And in this case, we were able to impound the cheese. What we discovered were two people who had nacho cheese, and we had some other people that had other foods. But we did find that back in 1996, there was an article in the Annals of Internal Medicine that reported a botulism outbreak in Georgia that involved cheese sauce. So that raised our suspicion about cheese sauce. And then we discovered that people had been to the same area. And then finally we were able to interview patients and find out that they actually had been there and eaten nacho cheese. So we also provide messaging to the public and to providers about botulism and to be on the lookout for it with the signs and symptoms. And also part of our efforts were to provide information to the public by putting up posters, signs down in the area, in schools, churches, and camps. Now, hepatitis A is a hot topic right now for a very good reason. And it is, this is a slide showing a handout that's being provided. It's at the front desk at EMD, but it's also being passed out in shelters and various other places in Sacramento, informing people about hepatitis A, what they need to know about it, and what they need to do about it to prevent it in themselves, and also how they can see if they or someone else has symptoms and that they receive treatment. At this time, there's a large hepatitis outbreak going on in California. The majority of the people who are ill have been experiencing homelessness and or using illicit drugs, and those drugs can either be injectable or non-injectable. The situation has much to do with being in a situation where there's limited sanitation. The outbreak is being spread person to person and through contact with fecally contaminated environment. This slide is showing some of the case numbers that are in California at this time. And San Diego, Santa Cruz, and Los Angeles have declared local health emergencies. So hepatitis A is very serious for people who have underlying liver disease, and particularly if someone has hepatitis B, hepatitis C, or alcoholic cirrhosis, they are at a risk of death due to hepatitis A. There are control measures which include the hepatitis A vaccine. This is a vaccine that was developed in 1996, and by 1999 was part of our state child vaccination laws. and it does provide a very good protection against hepatitis A. It's a 2-series vaccination, which the second shot is given 6 months after the first. A person who receives one vaccination has 93 to 95% protection. Then with the second dose, it's up around closer to 100% protection. Many people have received hepatitis A vaccine when they're receiving travel vaccines, and people can check their shot record to see whether they've had it or not. And also healthcare workers likely have received hepatitis A vaccination. There is a vaccination that combines hepatitis B and A, so that can be seen in a shot record as well. So the second control measure of great importance is having hand washing stations and toilets with access to toilets 24 hours. These are some of the things that are being done down in San Diego and being promoted in other areas. And this is to reduce the risk of transmission due to poor sanitary conditions. Right now, the statewide recommendations for vaccinations in this outbreak are directed towards people who are homeless, who use illicit drugs, who have chronic liver diseases, and men who are having sex with men. This group is where we're focusing attention to vaccinate. In the outbreak jurisdictions, that's San Diego, LA, Santa Cruz, it also includes anyone who has close contact with people who are homeless and or use illicit drugs, anyone who has close contact with environments serving or near the homeless, and people using drugs, and these would be like needle exchange programs, that kind of thing, as well as teams who go out to provide health care or serve the homeless outside of shelters. They should be vaccinated, and people who are at risk through their employment may be covered by their occupational health. For the general public, at this time, there is not a recommendation for hepatitis A. Other people who have insurance should seek vaccination through their healthcare provider. So the last thing, I brought a handout on sanitation measures, which San Diego County put together, that have to do with cleaning of right-of-ways such as sidewalks, streets, and gutters with Clorox solution. And I thought you might find that of interest. And so that concludes my presentation, and I will take questions.
Thank you, Kate. That was a good presentation. I have a couple questions. I think some other folks maybe have some too. In regards to the Walnut Grove case, what was the actual source? Was that determined for the cheese sauce? Was it a canned cheese sauce, or was it a...
It was a cheese sauce that was being dispensed there.
Out of a dispensing machine?
Yes.
Okay. And did you guys take any actions against the machine or the operator there?
The cheese itself was impounded and taken to a lab for testing.
Okay. Do you believe that the botulism got contaminated in the machine, or was it contaminated prior to going in the machine?
According to some work that EMD did, The company itself that manufactured the cheese had no complaints against it, no reports of illness.
So no action was taken against the manufacturer of the cheese itself then?
As far as I know.
Yeah, okay. On the matter of the hepatitis, in your table, I believe you showed San Diego having 490 cases and Santa Cruz with 71. Then you go down to where they have other, and there's maybe 7. Is there a normal background level of hepatitis cases usually showing up in the population most of the time?
Yes, there are. Like last year, we had 8 cases. So there are cases of hepatitis that show up each year, and there also there are foodborne outbreaks that occur, and we follow up on those as well. A few years ago, there were strawberries and that sort of thing.
So when you see a situation where you've got 10 times the normal background, that's when we really get concerned with the public appeal here.
Well, we were talking about hepatitis A. The botulism, we were very concerned because it's a very serious disease.
Well, I was thinking of the hepatitis also.
Oh,
Like
the
in San
hepatitis,
Diego,
yes.
it was many times larger. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
So in your talking about like hand washing stations and creating access to toilets, is there any consideration for making those more available here in Sacramento County for our homeless population?
Yes. Yes, there are discussions ongoing about that.
Okay. And who would be implementing that? Would that be through public health, or would it be through?
I can't really answer that question. That's above me.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But it is an ongoing conversation that
Yes.
these will be made available to homeless people or people in the park or something like that?
Yes, as far as I know.
How about vaccinating the homeless and people like that? Are there any ongoing actions to target those populations too?
Yes, there are. We have started vaccinating in shelters, and also have plans to outreach to the homeless community who don't come into shelters, and attempting to access them in places where we can reach them.
And this is being done by the Public Health Department?
We sometimes give vaccinations ourselves. We also provide vaccine to providers in situations where they are able to provide to hard-to-reach population.
And I assume that this is all kind of voluntary? The people who are getting vaccinated are volunteering?
Yes.
It's not a mandatory requirement or anything like that?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. That was good, thank you. Is there any questions from the commission? Mark, yeah, please.
Back to the botulism thing, or maybe it's for Ryan, was that equipment inspected by EMD, do you know? Any idea? At that valley, wherever?
Yeah, the facility itself was part of EMD's regular inspection program. And I think as what was stated earlier was, I'm not sure it was ever determined definitively what the source of the botulism was. It was in the nacho cheese manufacturer. There's no indication it was from them. I don't think we really found a quote-unquote smoking gun there. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the information that I have.
Correct. I'm in agreement.
Interesting. So I'm not getting any nachos there. But anyway, you provided some statistics about botulism, 199 cases in the U.S. in 2015. Do you have any information about how many we had in California in 2017?
So far,
16.
or in 2016, we had 8 cases.
8 in California.
Yeah. No, in our county.
Oh, in Sacramento County.
Yeah.
That seems Seems, that's in addition to those, obviously, that occurred in 2017 that we're talking about here.
We're not on the numbers that I gave you. That was San Diego, LA, and Santa Cruz.
I was talking about the botulism.
I'm sorry.
So
We had no botulism last year that was foodborne.
yeah, I was wondering if you knew just offhand what the California statistics were compared to the 199 in the U.S. California.
During that year, I don't know.
Yeah. Then on to the risks. You mentioned honey given to infants can be a source of botulism. Is that often fatal to the kids?
The kids can become very ill and can be fatal, but normally, we try to get the botulism to them. The tricky part is getting them diagnosed, getting them to the hospital.
And honey isn't a botulism carrier, I assume, for adults.
Not so much. So sometimes the honey has some of the spores from dirt that are in the honey, and adults are better able to handle a small amount of the toxin compared to an infant.
Sure. Thank you. I bet you Tony has the answer to most of my questions.
Yeah. No, that's good question. Actually, that was on the botulism. That was good work finding that old article on the cheese outbreak in Georgia or wherever. But so, I don't want to belabor this, but were they selling other food products next to the cheese sauce that could contain spores, like, I don't know what, potatoes or something, you know?
That was looked at, and
I assume you all looked at that, yeah. But
yeah. We did not find any other source.
oh, okay. Well, that's really a mystery then, I guess. Because so it didn't come from the cheese source, but so you assume that it was contaminated at the local place in Walnut Grove.
Well, we really can't say.
Speculate. Well, and then just on the hepatitis, so yeah, foodborne outbreaks are the most common thing. So this outbreak in San Diego, has it been traced to any particular foodborne, or is it just poor sanitation?
It has to do with the poor sanitation due to being homeless, and not only the poor, lack of hand washing, and also sharing of utensils, and their overall health condition.
Thank you.
I saw an article yesterday, I guess, in the paper where they are out actively spraying the sidewalks and places like that where people amass with chlorine bleach, basically, to decontaminate possible infected areas. Are you aware of that? Are you guys still tracking this as an activity down there in San Diego?
I've seen that in San Diego. I'm not aware of what is ongoing here.
Yeah. Okay.
One more comment, just because there was testing of the American River for E. coli, which would indicate fecal contamination, and I guess the test came out positive around Discovery Park. And so is that the same, put us at a risk for hepatitis A also when you have E. coli fecal contamination?
We would have to find that in the water, that.
That's harder, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that it? Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much, Kate. Appreciate you coming down and giving us a presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is approval of our August monthly meeting minutes. You'll have a copy in your agenda package. If you take a look at it, if there's any motion to approve in a second, I'd appreciate it.
I move to approve, but I wonder if we have a quorum of those folks who were there for that meeting.
Yes, we do. So, did you make a motion?
To approve.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Diane. All in favor for approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so we passed. We have possibly some of our permanent committee reports, starting with the Environmental Awards Committee. Eric, is there anything you'd like to report to the commission tonight?
Yeah, we've made some progress. I guess over the last few weeks, we had our meeting that was prior to our previous August meeting. So we did have a kind of a kickoff meeting to gather some ideas, do some brainstorming, and from that we put together a list and created a spreadsheet that we're hoping we can populate. People can volunteer to go on there and add contact information. Indicate whether they've reached out to someone. So that's part of the process of we're hoping to encourage more participation this upcoming year, and we've reached out to a few people already. And so, if you'd like to send me the name of the group or contact information of the person that you're reaching out to, I'll add it to the list so that way we don't have any redundancy in who we're reaching out to. So there's that, and I'm hoping we can have a follow-up meeting maybe sometime in December or November.
Maybe November would be good.
Okay.
And I have a few names that I'll be adding that I've reached out to.
Very good.
I have a few questions. I'll call you separately.
Okay.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Oh, Mark.
I
Yes.
have a comment, a question more than a comment. As many of you probably know, I take one class at Sac State because I love doing it. It's great. If you haven't done it, do it. Anyway, there's lots of stuff going on over there that's really environmental and really pretty neat, and stuff that's just buried in the everyday life in Sacramento. I think the same thing goes on in all the community colleges around. I have a contact at Sac State, but not at community colleges. So if any of you all have contacts at community colleges that may not be in the sustainability area, but just any area that can lead you to the guy in the administration who does that, or the woman, it would be worth pursuing. Otherwise, I will pursue it somehow from some point. But if anybody has a leg up on it, please go for it. The other one that just struck me one day as we were sitting in the music circus, sitting next to the people that build the sets. The prior one was the people that do the costumes that we were sitting next to. I thought, these guys do some cool stuff too. We got to figure out what that is and see if it's award-worthy. And they're very interested in talking to us about it. So we're pursuing those guys. So if you know anybody else like that in the theater business, there's a lot of things that we kind of look for professional environmental firms or manufacturers or whatever doing things, but I think we're missing out on a whole great big sector of the population where there's some cool stuff going on we don't even know about. So just an encouragement.
And right now what's playing in the background is slides from previous winners, and I'm noticing there's a lot of elementary schools, a lot of middle schools, so we've been very fortunate to get that kind of participation. Hopefully this year we can continue to reach out to that sector. But there's also businesses and other organizations in there that should also apply. So hopefully this year we get a much bigger turnout.
Good. Thank you, Eric. Any report from the webpage committee? Tony?
Yes. So last meetings, we've been discussing the need for a link on the EMD page back to our commission page. And so now we have that. And so I think we can improve the look of it. Right now, it just says Sacramento Environmental Commission on the EMD page. But maybe, so we'll talk about that and come back next meeting with either some icon or maybe just something that says like, to learn more about environmental issues, see this link. Because I was looking at it and it just was there, but it wasn't, it didn't really invite me to click on it. So I'm thinking, well, we'll try to improve that.
Yeah, words are easy to change on that homepage, and so anything that the webpage committee sends me, we can implement that pretty quick.
Great. And actually, our cyanobacter report is listed as in the current news on the EMD news site there. So that's
right.
So there are two links actually right now on the EMD page too, back to the commission. Yeah, I think. Otherwise, the links are all looking good, and yeah, everything's up to date.
Okay, very good. The annual report committee has nothing really to offer at this point in time. We're going to probably start gearing up, compiling all the 2017 meeting minutes probably in December and early January. So I think Bob Bailey will be taking the lead on that. So let's see here, he can give us a better report. Moving on to our outreach, is there any agency contacts that anybody been made during the last month? Mark?
Yeah, I had a chance to meet with the folks out at the Recycling and Waste Management Department Division, I don't know, the ones who run Kiefer Road landfill for us. I asked them, basically introduced the topic of using, of the role Kiefer has as a resource in the region. It's a significant role, and they do some, again, I hate to keep using this technical term, but they do some really cool stuff out there. For example, they have a project with the Sacramento Tree Foundation where they're planting a bunch of oak trees in areas they're not going to use at the landfill, which provides a buffer for the landfill habitat, and we get some more oak trees and beauty out of the whole thing. It's just synergy all over the place. One of the issues they have coming up that we will be faced with in the future, and I'm sure hear quite a bit about, is a state requirement to start processing, managing food waste. It's going to require a significant change to our infrastructure, but even more difficult and more important is the education to get residents to do what needs to be done. And that's going to be a difficult thing for many people to do. We hope that they do it because food waste includes so many organics. We can get such good stuff out of processing that material, but it's not cheap. It's not easy, and it's going to require a significant investment probably. County knows much more about that, and one day maybe they can tell us about it.
When is that going to be rolling out?
The regulations aren't even close to being finished yet, so that's a really good question.
2019?
I wouldn't even hazard a guess.
Okay.
Having worked for those folks, I would not hazard a guess. One other thing that they pointed out is that they have 60 years of capacity out there. That's important for us in having an understanding of our longevity and how that little issue, you know, the garbage that comes out in front of your house every morning and goes away, and that's all we care about, they're going to have a place to put it for a long time. As importantly, with the recent news in the last week or so, if we have such a disaster in this area, we have a place to put that material, a place to temporarily spot it while they can pick through it and get out the recyclables so we dispose of as little as possible. But we're wonderfully rich in having enough space out there to be able to do those things and then continue our disposal operations with the standard garbage and just kind of make the whole system continue to work while we've got this awful thing going on in the background like they have in the Napa, Sonoma area. That's what we had to say. And I did not get an opportunity this time to talk with the city folks, but hopefully I'll have a report from both next.
Anybody else have a chance this month to reach out?
Well, I just wanted to give an update. I'm working with a volunteer with a team of some other environmental professionals to assist a couple of landowners and the city in closing one of the legacy landfills near the Elvis area. And so I'll keep us updated as things progress on that.
Okay. And yeah, I've been following the American River Parkway issues. And so last time, I think, there was Senate Bill 5. It did pass, and it went to the governor. And that had, I think, it's going to be a $3.5 billion bond act to be voted on next June. But anyway, the governor signed it yesterday. So we're on. It has $10 million dedicated to the Lower American River Parkway.
So that's a funding for the Conservancy?
Yes.
And that's going to go to the public vote next
June.
November.
So it's slowly winding its way of funding for our local American River Parkway, but we're getting there. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, that's it, I think. Yeah.
In terms of if you recall, a couple months ago, we sent a survey that we distributed to other environmental commissions throughout California. And I believe we contacted at least 25, if not 30, commissions. So far, we've got a response of 2 back to the survey. So I guess we're just going to keep it open for at least another month, maybe not till the end of the year, see if we get any additional responses. Of the 2 we got, they're both very interested in communicating with us and sharing information. Hopefully, we'll get a little more interest from the other commissions out there so we can make it a bigger effort, I think. So that's all we have to report on that. Moving on, next item is our Environmental Management Director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ryan Bailey. I'm the acting division chief for the Environmental Compliance Division, standing in for Marie Wooden this evening. Thought I would just direct your attention to our monthly newsletter. And if you look at page 2, you'll see Septics Week highlighted. So I just want to talk a little bit about that. It may not seem like maybe the most exciting topic, but for us, it's pretty exciting. So this week, we celebrated and promoted for the first time Septics Week. It was September 18th to the 22nd. US EPA provides a lot of materials that can be used locally. They have graphics and artwork and a lot of kind of catchy slogans and things to kind of push it out there into the public view, something that people don't really think about or maybe have ever thought about. We have, and you might be surprised to know this, we have the better part of 10,000 septic systems in Sacramento County.
Wow.
Now, most of those are in rural areas, and when you think rural area, you probably think way out in the middle of nowhere. Well, we do have parts of town that have a lot of development, but they don't necessarily have the sewer system infrastructure that comes right up to where they live. In many cases, there can be a sewer system that is across the street, but that sewer system is maybe part of a city's sewer system and not one that they have access to. So we do find these little corners in the county where the only way to manage their sewage and their wastewater is to install a septic system. So homeowners, we've got the better part of 10,000 homeowners. We have very few programs at EMD that really touch on individual homeowners. This is the public. These are residential folks, and we make sure that septic systems are installed properly, they're repaired or modified properly. We have a review process, so they submit plans or they work with the appropriate professional engineer. They submit plans and documentation basically showing that they've evaluated the soils. We have to maybe take a look at the percolation rates, distance to wells on their property. We're trying to protect public health and the environment, so what we're looking at is the distance to groundwater, the distance to their well, that they're not going to be potentially drinking what they're flushing down the toilet, and that what they're flushing down the toilet isn't going to ultimately create a groundwater contamination problem. So we have a number of checks and balances there to make sure that those things don't happen. So one part of Smart Septics Week is to just remind people that may be on septic systems that there's a smart way to go about operating, maintaining, and being a good or a smart septics owner. The other thing that occurs is some of these same folks that are on septic systems and maybe aren't really having their septic tank pumped out at any real frequency that's healthy for their septic system, is they also have individual wells on their property. They don't have public water service. They don't have a utility bill they're paying every month for water. They have water that comes out of their own individual private well on their property. So we also recommend, and it's not a requirement, but it is a recommendation on our part, that they test their water well once a year to be comfortable with the water that they're drinking. So this program touches on a lot of facets that you may not have ever thought about. So for us, Septic Weeks was very successful this year. We'll likely do it again next year, probably maybe go a little further. We've thought about possibly the idea of a proclamation from our Board of Supervisors, if we were to bring that to them as a recommendation as staff. It is also Food Safety Month, and the county does celebrate, and the board recognizes locally Food Safety Month, and it's 1 week during that same month. So we would have some things to consider there if we're trying to promote too many things all at once in the board chambers. But we may bring that back.
Ryan, do you specifically look at situations where you have land parcels that are less than 3 acres in size and groundwater and septic tanks all in the same concentrated area?
Yeah, so we do have very strict rules, so to speak, on setbacks to property lines to existing surface waters to wells. So we do have a lot of things that we look at. However, many of those requirements came into play on a specific year and date, and we have systems that predate that went in the ground. So we do have a situation that arises where somebody put in a septic system way back when. They go to repair or modify their system, and the rules have changed, so they have to do some work to bring it up to the current standards. So you're right that we have kind of a minimum number of acres, lot size. I can't remember it at the moment, but we do have some standards, and we also have those who have a system that doesn't meet the current standards that really don't need to until they go to modify or install a new system. So we're always kind of playing with that. Yes.
Yeah, this is a subject that is near and dear to me. I have a failed septic system and a pit in my cabin in Amador County. The issue there is I'll ascribe it to the drought, but my leach lines are totally filled with roots from surrounding trees. The tank is fine, but the leach lines are full. So in order to get a new system put in place, I can't just replace the old leach lines. That's not something that's going to happen. So I'm going to have an engineered system. In fact, the engineer has already designed the system, so it's not a simple just lay out new leach lines in a different spot. All of those things you talked about, setbacks and all that, are all being met with the new system. But one of the things that I find interesting is that the Amador County has required now that every year they inspect the system for the next 5 years after it's been installed. Do you have a similar kind of inspection program, and do we in Sacramento County have a similar kind of inspection program on these engineered systems?
So the answer there is, in the main, no. However, most of our systems are the typical septic system with seepage pits and distribution box and septic tanks. So they're more of the classical system. We have some alternative systems that are an engineered system like you're talking about, and we are starting to have some operating permits for those systems, and as they come in, we're starting to do that, but that's new for us.
Yeah, it just seemed a surprise to me. I mean, I'm certainly amenable to it, but it was part of, before they would even issue my permit, I had to agree to having inspections done on an annual basis and allow them to come in on my property and do those inspections. So just curious, so thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions on that?
I have one more question. What did you actually do to outreach during this week here on Septic Smart Week?
Great question. So we had a news item that was posted to the county news page, and our public information office helped us with that. So that actually went on the county's main news page as an article. So that gets a little bit more response than just putting something on our department page. We also put something on our department page. And we tried to leverage social media because that seems to be very effective. So what we did is we had a week, 5 days of topics. So we announced a save the date on Facebook that Septic Week was coming. We had an announcement that Septic Week is here, and then we encourage people to check back for tips each day. So for example, one of the days was, what is a septic system? With some simple information about, what is this thing? A lot of people very unfamiliar with it. Then we had some top 10 tips for septic owners. What can you do to maintain and to keep your system healthy? We had the last day, one of the topics was, if you're buying a home, what are those things to look at with regard to the septic system? Which that comes up infrequently, but it should come up very frequently. And that should be probably one of the first things people are asking when they're buying a home that they know is not on public sewer. And we also worked with our public information office to use Twitter. So we don't have a Twitter account. Mm-hmm. We have access to those resources with the county public information office. So we essentially did a little bit of some print and social media just to try to get it in front of people. The more times you get it in front of them, the more impressions you make, and really that was the emphasis this time around.
Well, if you decide that you're going to continue this effort next year, we would like to participate with you and help you in any way seek information or approval from the board to make this a more recurring event. It sounds like it's a good process that you're trying to go through.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments before we call it an evening? Diane?
I wanted to ask, I know after the Calaveras County fires, there was an exchange of personnel between Calaveras County and Sacramento EMD to assist in their efforts. And it may be too soon right now, but with the environmental disaster that's happened in the Napa and Sonoma areas, is there any exchange of assistance going on through EMD? And then I have a second part question about that as well when you're done.
That's a great question. In fact, we did receive a request that came through the Governor's Office of Emergency Services to Sacramento County over the weekend for a number of specialists that work in the areas that our staff work in, probably helping with damage assessments like we did in Calaveras County to help with the effort with CalRecycle and DTSC for removing debris of various types and doing it appropriately and getting those properties ready to rebuild. That request was a little bit premature. It was rescinded, and it'll probably come back in a more specific form. We needed a little bit of clarification on what they wanted. So I think all the systems are working and are in place. It's a well-oiled machine at this point, so when they're ready, we'll know what kind of assistance they want, and we can start now trying to identify which staff we have and what kind of response we'll be prepared to give.
Great, thank you. And then the second half of that, is there anything that our commission can do? I don't know if there's a commission in I don't recall in Sonoma or Napa that we may be able to reach out to and see if there's some way that we can help as a commission.
We can make that determination. We can find out, see if there's an equivalent commission or if there's another body within the planning department.
And I would be happy to look into that as well.
I have one additional question for Ryan. I know after the Calaveras event, we had a little quick report from you guys on what, in fact, it was a little longer. It was a kind of a nice presentation on what you did. Love to have the similar thing for Napa Sonoma, because you guys do some wonderful work, and God knows that's a place that's certainly needed.
We'd be happy to bring back a report on that. One of the things we're struggling with now is so many of the lodging and other venues that we would rely upon to send our staff to are full already. So part of this will be trying to determine what alternative, non-traditional type places our people can lodge at. Would that be a camp, possibly? Some type of, sleeping bag type arrangement? And we haven't really crossed that bridge before, so we have a lot to look into before we would be ready to send assistance.
Any other comments from the commissioners? Tony?
I noticed we have our attentive presentation topics. Was there interest in a discussion on this, or?
Do you wish to make a comment on this?
I was just thinking about the Mark mentioning the green waste requirements, and we haven't heard from the city solid waste in quite a while.
I'd asked them also to provide us a presentation when Jill can get it scheduled on the city's landfill downtown as a resource. And what my preference would be to have both agencies here at the same time, because both of their facilities are the different ends of the same resource stick. And it would be, just quite interesting, I think, and valuable. So, but we have to see if we can get it scheduled.
Okay.
And I would be happy if I needed to step down in a presentation. If there's something you wanted to add in the November slot, that would be fine. I mean, I could speak in addition to them as well.
Okay. Any other comments or any other thoughts on our presentation topics for 2018? Even though it's not an agenda item.
Can we add that to the agenda for next time so we can discuss it then at our November meeting?
Sure.
The topics?
Yep, we'll put that on the next November meeting. Okay. Hearing no more comments, I think we're finished. Oh, Eric.
I just had one additional comment. I took a look at the Clean Cities Coalition website. There was some question on whether the commission might be interested in joining the coalition. There seems to be like a sponsor level, and there seems to be like a partner as well. So I'm looking into the difference between the two. The sponsor ranges anywhere from $500 to $10,000. So I'm not sure if that's something the commission can do. It might be something more along the lines that the EMD could do rather than just the commission. But I'll follow up with more notes as I learn a little bit more.
One question would be, is Sacramento County already a member of the...
Yeah, I didn't see them on the list, but yeah, we'll look into it some more.
Okay, good. Any other comments or thoughts? Given that, we'll be adjourning the meeting to November 20th at 6 p.m. at the EMD offices at Mayfield Field. Thank you.